Radio 15 Sports and Orioles Baseball 1981. The post-game show with Oriole broadcaster Tom Marr. Orioles Baseball 1981, a sports presentation of WTOP News Radio 15 in Washington, D.C.
Good evening once again, everyone, from Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. This is Tom Marr with tonight's post-game show. The Orioles with a big victory tonight. The final totals on the board. For Baltimore, 9 runs, 13 hits, and no errors. For the losing Cleveland Indians, the first time the Orioles have seen them this year, 2 runs, 4 hits, and 1 error. However, the Tigers have won again. The Detroit Tigers still remain in first place, 2.5 games in front of the Orioles. Milwaukee left today, so Milwaukee is also 2.5 games back. Jim Palmer, the winning pitcher tonight. Jim's record is 5-7 on the year. 7 1/3 strong innings for Palmer tonight. Career victory number 246 against the Cleveland Indians lifetime now. The classy right-hander is 27-11 entering this year. He had an ERA against Cleveland lifetime of 2.17 with 7 shutoffs. The losing pitcher waits. His record is 6-8 and 6-7 lifetime against the Orioles. Home runs for the Orioles tonight playing a big part, an awfully big part in this game, especially Eddie Murray's that came in the 5th, the grand slam. The Orioles now have 5 on the year. Eddie's 15th home run. Rick Dempsey got the Orioles on the board tonight in the 3rd inning with his 6th home run, a solo shot, number 6 for Dempsey. Eddie Murray was 4 for 5 tonight, a very good night. Al Bumbry 4 for 5. Len Scotty was 2 for 3, continues to hit very well, has had 9 hits in his last 16 at-bats. Again, however, the Tigers have won again, so the Orioles and Milwaukee still 2.5 games behind Detroit. The Orioles no longer will have to play teams in the Western Division. From now on, they're going to stay in the Eastern Division. They'll be playing Detroit, Milwaukee, and New York. The Orioles finally and Cleveland getting to play the teams involved in this very hot pennant race in the second season. Well, we'll be back to take a listen to some of the highlights of tonight's win after this message. Fireworks display here on Sky Concert Night, so we're not going to take a whole lot of time with the wrap-up tonight. First of all, it was a scoreless game going into the bottom of the 3rd inning. Dempsey is leading off. Here comes the 1-0 pitch on the way to Dempsey. Line drive, well hit, deep left field. It's got a chance. It is going to be a Dempsey home run. Well, they roar their approval here at the stadium. That's not the lofted fly ball. Dempsey just touched off a bazooka shell. End of the Oriole 4th inning with 1 out. Murray doubled to left. He went to 3rd as Doug DeCense grounded out. Ayala walked to bring up Gary Redicky. And the 2-2 pitch. Swinging a line drive, base hit into left field. Here's Murray home with a 2nd run. So Redicky has knocked in run number 2. A solid jolt off the bat of Redicky. And for Gary, his 17th run batted in. Again on stage is Rick Dempsey. As the 2-0 comes to Dempsey, line drive, base hit, right field. Ayala's going to try to score on Von Hayes. Here comes the throw to the plate. Ayala is overstanding. Throw to first. They now have Dempsey in a rundown. They throw to the second baseman, and he makes the tag for the final out of the inning. But the run will count. Scoring with run number 3 is Ayala, and on the throw toward the plate, Dempsey overran the bag and was run down for the final out. At the end of 4, the score is now Baltimore 3 and Cleveland 0. Now we move into the very productive 5th inning for the Orioles. They loaded the bases on 2 walks and a bunt single by Al Bumbry. Dave Garcia removed Rick Waits at that time for Wayne Garland. Single and walk to force in run number 4, 4-0 Baltimore. And the bases are loaded for Eddie Murray.
High drive, deep right field, going, another Orioles grand slam, and it's 8-0. Eddie Murray had a grand slam a couple of weeks ago. Len Scotty had a grand slam here yesterday. In less than a month now, the Orioles have had 5 grand slams. Every one in this ballpark. It is 8-0 in the 5th inning tonight.
The Orioles now lead the American League in grand slams. They have 5. Come here at Memorial Stadium. In the Indians' 6th inning, Bob Hayes homered off Jim Palmer. And then in the 8th inning, Pat Kelly singled home Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes a pretty good night. A couple of walks in the base hit, 2 stolen bases. That's the way it wound up here at the stadium tonight. The Orioles winning it by a score of 9-2 as they put another run on the board late in the game. The Orioles and the Cleveland Indians meet here tomorrow night. We're going to be back after this message with a wrap-up. All right, now quickly, we'll run down the scoreboard for you.
The Orioles winning last night 9-2, even more easily tonight 14-5. In the 2 ball games have collected 23 runs and 30 base hits. Tomorrow night, they try to tear after Bert Blyleven, who will oppose Steve Stone. The announcers for the broadcast,
with Oriole broadcaster Tom Marr. Orioles Baseball 1981, a sports presentation of WTOP News Radio 15 in Washington, D.C.
Good evening once again, everyone, from Baltimore's Memorial Stadium. This is Tom Marr with tonight's post-game show. The Orioles have made it 4 in a row. With any luck, they'll close within a game and a half of the Tigers in the American League East, as the Red Sox in the 7th inning are leading the Tigers by a score of 4-2. The Orioles clubbing Cleveland for the second night. They won tonight 14-5 after a 9-2 victory last night. 14 runs represents a high for the year. 17 hits and 1 error for the Orioles. For the losing Cleveland Indians, 5 runs, 11 hits, and no errors. Scotty McGregor, the winning pitcher. Scotty's record is now 10-3. The loser, fireballing Len Barker, his record is 7-6. The Orioles putting together 4 in a row. They'll close out their series here at home, this 15-game homestand, with games tomorrow night and Thursday night against the Cleveland Indians. Eddie Murray, I don't know what else you can say about him other than that he has been unbelievable. Eddie Murray, 2 for 3 tonight. 4 RBIs, another home run, a double for Eddie Murray. In his last 16 games, he has gone 13 for 22. Last night, he had a grand slam home run. Tonight, a 3-run homer. He's creeping up there among the leaders in 2 categories in the American League of interest. He now has 16 home runs and 57 RBIs. Doug DeCense goes deep tonight. A 2-run homer in the 3rd inning, his 12th on the year, a 3-hit night for DeCense. Dan Graham got a chance to play tonight. Got a couple of needed base hits, was 2 for 2 with a walk with a couple of RBIs. Manning for the Cleveland Indians, 4 hits tonight, including his 4th home run. Bo Diaz, his 6th home run on the year for the Cleveland Indians. We'll be back to listen to some of the highlights in tonight's game for you after this message. Well, the Orioles wasted no time getting to Len Barker, the loser, tonight after the Indians picked up an unearned run off Scott McGregor in the 1st inning. Al Bumbry single lead things off for the Orioles. He went to 3rd on a Ken Singleton single. Then Eddie Murray hit a long fly ball, give Eddie a sacrifice fly at an RBI. Things are all tied up at 1-1. DeCense singled into 3rd. Then Lowenstein and Graham went to work back-to-back. Barker to Lowenstein. Line drive into the gap in left center field. Singleton is around 3rd. Delaunay falls down. Singleton will score the go-ahead run. The throw to 2nd. Not in time. Not in time to get Lowenstein. DeCense is down to 3rd. The Orioles have a 2-1 lead. Lowenstein is at 2nd base. And DeCense is at 3rd. Graham awaits the 1-strike delivery. It's on the way. Line drive well hit out into right field, and that's off the wall in right field. DeCense is home with a run. Here comes Lowenstein with another, and Graham goes into 2nd base with a double on a drive deep to right field and off the wall, and over the head of Ron Pruitt. And it's a 4-1 game. Then in the 3rd inning, Eddie Murray just rifled a double off the wall in right field. Took no time to bounce off that ball. Doug DeCense, the next batter. A look to Eddie. Here's the pitch to DeCense. Fly ball well hit down the line in left field and into the seats for a Doug DeCense home run. rifle shot. This time off the bat of Doug Dempsey. Into the seats and left. And get out of this park in a hurry. 6-1 Baltimore. Dempsey is congratulated by Lowenstein, by Murray. And for Dempsey, that's going to be home run number 12. In the sixth inning, the Orioles loaded the bases on 3 walks off reliever Sid Mongeed. Dempsey hit a shot deep in the hole at short. The Cleveland shortstop, Mike Fischlin, tried to force the runner at third. However, he didn't make it. Too late. Another run is home, the 7th run of the game, and everybody's safe. And another hit for Dempsey, his 3rd on the night. In the 7th inning, the Orioles loaded the bases on Sid Mongeed on a single by Dempsey, a double by Sept, and a walk to Dower. Bumbry walk, forcing in the 8th run. It's so long to Sid Mongeed. Dennis Llewellyn comes in. Dwyer on a sacrifice fly to center field scores the 9th run. 9-2 Baltimore. Eddie Murray's on stage again.
2-1 to Murray. High fly ball. Deep to right center field. This one might go. It is gone for another Murray home run. A 3-run blast for Murray. A 12-2 Oriole lead. And Eddie Murray now has 8 home runs for the second half of the year. The 25-year-old Oriole first baseman has 16 home runs for the season.
What a night for Eddie Murray at Memorial Stadium tonight. What a night Eddie Murray had last night. In the 8th inning, Renicky doubled. Dower singled him home, 13-4. Bumbry then doubles home Dower, 14-4. The Indians pick up another home run on the batting home run. The Orioles win it big in Baltimore tonight over the Cleveland Indians, 14-5. We'll be back to take a look at that scoreboard. Couple of important things tonight. Danny Graham was 0 for 24 until he doubled home 2 runs off Len Barker in the first inning tonight. It was his first hit since August the 14th. That was a single against the White Sox. Only his second since last June the 11th in a losing cause against Seattle. He was 1 for 28 in the second half coming into the game tonight. His 2 RBIs were his first since way back on June the 10th. The only reason he was in the lineup tonight, his stats against Len Barker, just a little better than Rick Dempsey's. He was 3 for 12 lifetime off of Barker, had a home run, and Earl Weaver said before the game, I have to get this guy some playing time. I have to try to get him out of the slump. That's why he is in the game tonight. Tonight's paid attendance, 8,193. I'll tell you one thing, however, there were a lot of no-shows here tonight as a result of this game being on television. Scotty McGregor is now 10-3 on the year. He is 4-1 in the second half in 7 starts. It was his first decision in his last 3 since he beat Ken Porsche of California here on August the 27th. And Scott is 6-2 lifetime now against the Indians. He has won his last 3 decisions against the Indians. He was 2-0 in 1980. All 3 wins have been at the expense of Len Barker. Scotty's career record is now 61-36 since he started with the Orioles in 1979. Eddie Murray has now driven in 8 runs in the last 2 games and 31 in the last 27 second half games to go along with 8 home runs and an average of .323. On the year, Eddie has 57 RBIs and a .280 average, and Eddie Murray is climbing up there among the leaders, as we told you earlier, in the home run category and in the RBIs. Coming into action today, the home run leader was Tony Armas. He had 21, followed by Gorman Thomas of Milwaukee, Armas of Oakland, Thomas of Milwaukee, Thomas 18, Bobby Grich 17 home runs. Then Evans, Luzinski, and Johnson had 16. Eddie had 15, put 16 in that category for Eddie Murray. Eddie Murray with 4 RBIs tonight moves from a tie with Evans. He passes Pechoric, who had 54. He passes Winfield and Bell, who had 56. He now has 57. That's third behind Ogilvy of Milwaukee with 58. Armas of Oakland 64. Of course, we don't know what those players will do, but if Eddie continues to have that hot bat, you can look for him to be up there near the top before this season is over. The Orioles have won 4 straight. Before we take a look at the scoreboard, let's pause for station identification. Now, Dick Williams has been fired as the manager of the Montreal Expos. Peter Pasquarelli, pretty knowledgeable baseball writer for the Baltimore News American, said tonight He has checked with some inside sources, and he's got some good ones. He would wager his paycheck that Williams winds up managing the New York Yankees as soon as the 1981 season is over. You might want to bat that around on the talk show coming up here on our flagship station, WFBR, or possibly Phil Wood. We'll have time to discuss that report out of Baltimore tonight, and I guess it's a report out of quite a few areas that Dick Williams could be the new Yankee manager. Bob Lemon, who is managing the New York team now, taking over for Gene the Stick Michael, managing on the contract, his old contract that he had with George Steinbrenner when he replaced Billy Martin. And there is some indication that Lem has just agreed to come and work out his old contract and does not want the job full-time next year. It would be interesting to see Dick Williams come back to the American League. The game between Milwaukee and New York at Yankee Stadium tonight was postponed as a result of rain. There will be a twilight doubleheader tomorrow night. This is the situation in Detroit. Boston leads the Tigers 4-2 at the end of 7 innings. Torres started for the Red Sox. He's been relieved by Clear. Wilcox started for Detroit. He's been relieved by Rozema. Carl Yastrzemski hit a 2-run homer in the 6th inning. 2-run homer in the 6th inning for Yastrzemski against Detroit. Now, Detroit has 19 wins in the second half. Remember this. In 8 of those wins, they have come from behind to win the game in the 8th inning or later. Also remember that Detroit is a team that before the strike had won 10 of 12 games, and their staff ERA in the second half is 2.76. Other games,
in Washington, D.C. WTOP News Radio 15 Sports and Orioles Baseball 1981. The post-game show with Oriole broadcaster Tom Marr. Orioles Baseball 1981, a sports presentation of WTOP News Radio 15 in Washington, D.C.
Good evening once again, and everyone at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. This is Tom Marr, and for Doug DeCense, he's done it again. A dramatic grand slam home run, this time in the 8th inning, to give the Orioles a 6-2 victory over the California Angels. The Orioles have now won 5 out of their last 6 games. They've had that home run bat working in the last 4 games. It couldn't have come at a more opportune time than tonight. Bobby Grich, 2 home runs for the California Angels, but it was the big blow off the bat of Doug DeCense, his 10th home run on the year, his 2nd grand slam this year, 5th lifetime, that gives the Orioles their victory over California. For the Orioles, 6 runs on 9 hits with no errors. For the losing California Angels, 2 runs, 5 hits and no errors. Scott McGregor, another good job on the hill tonight. Scott's record on the year is now 9-3. He is 9-2 lifetime against the California Angels. He lost his first 2 starts against the California Angels. Since then, he has won 9 in a row, including 1 game in the American League Championship Series in 1979. Bobby Grich, as we mentioned tonight, 2 solo home runs, number 14 and number 15 on the year. We'll be back to listen to the dramatic DeCense home run and other highlights of tonight's game after this message. Al Bumbry singled in the 1st inning. He went to 3rd on a Bauer double. He scored the Orioles' first run as Kenny Singleton grounded out to the right side. It remained 1-0 Baltimore, staying that way until the 7th inning when Grich belted his 14th home run to make it a 1-1 game. In the 7th inning, Dwyer led off with a single. He went to 2nd on a sac bunt by Dempsey. Crowley pinch hitting, grounded to 2nd base. Dwyer went to 3rd, and the batter is Al Bumbry. Strike 1 offering. Bounce to the hole and short. Campaneris has to make a long throw. It's late, and scoring from 3rd base with a go-ahead run is Jim Dwyer. A ground ball that Bumbry punched to the opposite side of the infield. Campaneris got over in the hole, squared off, through the first base, but late.
Infield hit by Bunbury, run batted in. Meyer home from third, and another Oriole one-run lead now. It is 2-1 in the 7th inning.
Now let's move to that 8th inning. The Orioles loaded the bases. Dower was hit by a pitch. He went to third on Eddie Murray's single to right field. Then Gary Renicky came into the game as the pinch hitter. Hassler came out of the bullpen and walked Gary Renicky to load the bases. Then Gene Mauch had the managerial wheels going, and they went just a little too far. He brought in his ace reliever, Don Ossie, who has just overpowered the Orioles in 10 innings of pitching this year. He came in to face Doug DeCinces, and on the first pitch, it happened.
A power pitcher, right-hander Don Ossie to Doug DeCinces. Long drive, deep left field, going, a grand slam, home run, and the Orioles lead 6-1. Within less than 2 weeks, Doug DeCinces in this ballpark has exploded a pair of grand slam home runs. He had one against the White Sox, the 15th of this month.
And the hard luck loser tonight, Glenn Abbott, his record is 2-5. The Orioles now, in one-run games this year, have an enviable record of 15-6. The Orioles scoring their one run, and it wasn't in classic style, as we'll go over it with the scoring for you. A big factor in tonight's game, Julio Cruz. He reached twice, but was gunned down by Rick Dempsey twice. No catcher has ever done that before. We'll give you more on that when we run down the highlights tonight. And you'll hear Rick gunning down Julio Cruz twice. That's never been done to Julio before in his career. And Julio Cruz, coming into the game, had successfully stolen 37 times. He had only been nailed 3 times. He did steal on Rick Dempsey just before the strike. Dempsey was a little upset about it. Rick got even tonight, but Julio will be back there in the lineup for the Seattle Mariners again tomorrow night. So the series between the two clubs is now even at 1 apiece, and the rubber match is going to be tomorrow night. Meanwhile, the race is still very tight. There's no score in the Tigers game this evening, as Detroit is at Chicago. Milwaukee is playing in Kansas City. They lead 1-0 in that game. We'll update you on the scoreboard a little later. We'll be back to listen to some of the highlights of this game after this message. Now, as we mentioned in our opening of the post-game show tonight, Julio Cruz was the only runner to reach against Steve Stone going into the 4th inning with a walk and a single. However, he was cut down both times by Rick Dempsey. The runner goes, the pitch is out. Dempsey throws to Belanger at second. The tag is put on, and they got him. Julio Cruz is cut down, and you're not going to see that happen very often. There goes the runner, the pitch, the throw to Belanger covering. They got him again. Too bad, Julio. 3-0 the count. Another good pitch for Dempsey to handle. It was up there, and Dempsey just rifled out a rocket to Belanger, and Julio Cruz has been caught 2 times in the same game. In the same game, yes, and then the Mariners staff did some research for us tonight along with the Orioles that showed that never before in one game has Julio been cut down twice by a catcher. He was, however, picked off twice in 1978 by then Kansas City pitcher Andy Hassler. So that was quite a feat for Rick Dempsey tonight. Now, after retiring the first batter in the 8th inning, Stone surrendered his 4th walk of the night. Earl Weaver then decided to go to the bullpen for Tippy Martinez, and he faced pinch hitter Gary Gray.
The right-hand batting Gary Gray with a man at first base. Ground ball to short, maybe 2. Belanger to Dower, 1. Dower to first, double play. Tippy Martinez walks out of the bullpen, makes 1 pitch to a pinch hitter. It is a ground ball double play and ends the top of the 8th. The Orioles stay ahead. Baltimore 1, Seattle nothing.
All right, now let's move to the bottom of the 9th inning. Tippy is on the hill. Cruz is up. Cruz is called out on 3 pitches, called out on strikes. Bach T grounds back to Tippy for the 2nd out. Then one of the better hitters in the game of baseball this year, Tom Paciorek, coming into the game with a .326 average, goes against Tippy Martinez.
The 1-ball, 2-strike offering. Swing and a miss. Tippy Martinez has just earned his 10th save of the year, and he's never been better in relief this season. He strikes out the .326 batting Tom Paciorek to end the ball game in a blaze of glory. and the Orioles win a tight one. They win it 1-0.
As you heard Bill say, the final here at Memorial Stadium tonight, the Orioles win it by a score of 1-0. Now, no doubt that you've read or heard some of the controversy swirling around between Earl Weaver and Jim Palmer. It started in Seattle, and then as the result of an article in the Washington Post on Sunday, this might be of particular interest to our listeners on WTOP in Washington tonight, it built into a fever pitch on Sunday. And Weaver and Palmer did not have a lot of words to say Sunday, but they had a heart-to-heart talk today, and we'll have a comment from both Earl Weaver and Jim Palmer. And by the way, for our stations along the network, for a fellow like Frank Daly at WTOP, some of the other sports reporters around the network, feel free to take Earl Weaver's comments and to take Jim Palmer's comments and use them in the morning you'd like. If you'd like to, Phil Wood over in listening in Washington tonight, if you'd like to use them in your show, you feel free to do so. Again, it appears as if, for now, in the continuing soap opera between Earl Weaver and Jim Palmer, things have been quieted down. We'll be back to hear a comment from both men after this message. Weaver, in his Earl Weaver's Manager's Corner tonight, addressed the subject of Jim Palmer. Of course, the show was recorded earlier in the day. Then later in the day, Jim Palmer and Earl Weaver talked for about 20 minutes in Earl's office. Jim made the first contact last night. As you know, Earl didn't have the best day in the world on Sunday night, or the best night in the world on Sunday night. Jim poked his head in the manager's door last night to kind of, just give Earl a little encouragement because there was some swirling controversy around Earl Weaver. And today, the two met. And in his show, his Manager's Corner show, this is what part of what Earl Weaver had to say. It's been edited about Jim Palmer.
I read where Jim Palmer said he had some doubts about his ability and didn't think he'd ever be the same Jim Palmer of bygone days. That's the very attitude that Ray Miller and myself are trying to discourage. Given the fact that Jim has no serious physical problems, Ray and myself feel that he can still go out and pitch with the best of them in the American League. Again, Palmer's physical condition is a primary factor, but if the reports are negative, I have to feel that we're going to need him to get into the playoffs. My judgment is that Palmer can still help this club become champions. I wish Jim would get that same feeling back.
Then we had a chance to talk to Jim Palmer. Maybe you heard him on the pregame show tonight. We've edited some of his comments to kind of address what Earl Weaver had to say and what was printed in the paper, especially in the Washington Post.
Well, I hope to be able to pitch Thursday. I got a cortisone shot. The doctors seem to think that it won't affect my next turn. Thought it was going to be Friday, but I told him that I would be glad to pitch on Thursday because Mike Flanagan has some problems that probably an extra day would help. As far as Earl and I, we had a very amicable discussion. We laughed about a lot of things, and which we always do, and I just think most of the things that are written about Earl and myself are not the truth. The bottom line is that I know he wants to win, and I still think I can help him and the ball club do that. And as long as that's the case, and I talked to Mr. Williams last night, I don't want to do anything to harm this ball club, and my intentions are to go out on the mound and pitch as best as I can.
Good to hear those words from Jim Palmer. One of the reasons Jim was upset is because of the fact that he has pitched very well this year. His record doesn't show it. Jim Palmer has not had the support in certain games. He went 7 innings up in Boston. The club was unable to score any runs, only a run in 6 or 7 innings in Chicago early in the year. Palmer pitched a complete game against the California Angels here early in the year and lost 2-0. At times, he has pitched very well. Jim felt that as a result of some of the comments made in the paper that he was being tested on Sunday. No, says Earl Weaver. No, says Ray Miller. So hopefully, things are ironed.
He backs up, the pitch is inside. Foul ball backing out of play.
Keeping a close eye on tonight. 3 innings complete.
Ripken's batting mark is only 118 since coming up from Rochester. The next delivery, high fly ball to center field. Murphy waiting for it. There's the catch, and he drops the ball. Here's Lowenstein rounding third and being stopped. That looked like a routine fly ball. It was about to become a routine catch, and Murphy dropped it. A 2-base error. You perhaps remember opening day when the Orioles played here against Kansas City, and Amos Otis dropped a routine fly ball. Well, the same thing just happened to Dwayne Murphy. 2-base error charged to Murphy. Lowenstein halted at third, and the bottom of the 8th continuing with Jim Dwyer. Little high, ball 1 to Royster.
The caddy struck Willie out in the 7th inning. Just outside. Like a catcher. Matter of fact, Willie looks to be even smaller than Rick Dempsey. The ball 2 delivery. Swinging a miss on the slider. That was the pitch that Royster had difficulty with in the 7th inning. 2 balls, 1 strike, first 4 innings.
Second Major League at bat for Willie Royster.
A right-hand thrower to a right-hand batter, 2-2. Royster swings and strikes out for the second time. The caddy now has 8 strikeouts, and he has out number 1 in the top of the 9th. Did I say top of the 9th? Pardon me, bottom of the 9th. Thank you. Len Secata, 0 for 1. Takes outside, 2 balls, 1 strike. So here in the 8th, when it looked like the bottom of the 8th was line drive foul outside the bag of first base. Trying to keep his shutout. He'd like to fly ball to deep left field. Back goes Henderson. Henderson's at the fence. It is a home run and a 4-0 lead. DeCinces has unloaded his 11th home run of the year. All right, so it is a new kind of start for the Orioles tonight. Not men left on. There were too many of them left on early in the ball game last night. Everybody that has a base hit here in the first inning has scored, thanks in great measure to DeCinces, whose 4 baggers just scored Singleton and Murray ahead of him.
Then in the open inning, we talked about the defense. Tony Armas is leading off, and a defensive gem for Lenny Secata. Lenny Secata playing short tonight.
1-1 to Tony Armas. Ground ball towards the third base side of second. The diving Secata has it. Throws in time. What a play by Len Secata. The ground ball was hit too hard for McGregor to reach. It was to McGregor's glove side. It was towards the third base side of second. Little Secata dove, speared it, got up, threw a strike to first base, and Armas has a seat in the dugout.
The A's got to Orioles starter Scotty McGregor in the 5th inning with 2 outs. Henderson doubled and scored on a Murphy single. 4-1 Baltimore leads at that point. Johnson scorched a ground rule double to the left field corner. Murphy had to hold up at third at that point. Then Armas is the batter.
Johnson at second, Murphy off third. 1-1 to Armas. First base open. Line drive, left field foul line, fair ball. And it will be a 4-3 game. Murphy has scored. Johnson coming home, and another 2-base hit, this one by Tony Armas, that went right inside the left field line.
Now that was all for Scotty McGregor. Sammy Stewart came out of the bullpen, and he lined out to Secata to end a productive inning for the A's in the 5th. In the A's 6th inning, 2 out, runners on first and third. Henderson is up. He walked to load the bases for Dwayne Murphy against Sammy Stewart.
Oakland has the bases loaded. Stewart battling Dwayne Murphy with a count 0-2. No room for Dwayne Murphy. Stewart's 2-strike pitch. Swing and a miss. He struck him out, and the inning is over. At the end of 5.5, Baltimore 4, Oakland 3.
Sammy Stewart now into the 8th inning, walked 2. And with 1 out, Henderson singled to shallow right field. Again, the bases are loaded. Well, Sammy's going to come out of the game this time. Earl goes to the bullpen for Tippy Martinez to face 1 batter, and then to Tim Stoddard to face 1 batter. And this is what happened in the 8th.
Here we go, the 1-ball, 2-strike pitch to Murphy. A check swing, strike 3 is called. Murphy started, tried to stop the swing, didn't get it. It was in the strike zone anyway, so Tippy Martinez gets a 3rd strike by Dwayne Murphy for the 2nd out of the inning. And now here comes Earl Weaver out of the dugout. He's on his way to the mound. Cliff Johnson is the due batter, the right-handed swinger, and out of the bullpen is the big power-throwing right-hander, Tim Stoddard. Every eye in this ballpark riveted on Tim Stoddard and the hitter, Cliff Johnson. At third base, Kelvin Moore. Second base, Shooty Babbitt. First base, Ricky Henderson. 2 out. And the strike 1 pitch to Cliff Johnson. Stoddard throws. High pop-up. Score toward the shortstop, Belanger. The sensei is with him. Belanger is under it, waiting. He's done it. Stoddard got Johnson on the pop-up, and again the Orioles force the A's to stall out with the bases loaded. At the end of 7.5, Baltimore 4, Oakland 3.
Okay, now let's go to the 9th inning. Of course, the Orioles didn't score in the 8th inning. Armas is up, and we're going to have a beat.
Now the 1-ball, 2-strike pitch. Stoddard to Tony Armas. Fastball is at the plate but low, and Dempsey is really on Bremigan now. Dempsey is out. Dempsey has been thrown out by Bremigan. And they're nose to nose, chest to chest, just yelling at each other as hard as they can. Dempsey feels that Bremigan cheated him and out of a strike, and he's going to let Bremigan know about it. Weaver now is into the act. He's beginning to kick and holler. Dempsey throws the mask, drops the ball. He felt it was a good strike, and he didn't get it, and he complained to Bremigan, and he complained too bitterly and carried on too long, and now Weaver's gone. Well, Dempsey is out of the ball game, and his manager, Weaver, is going with him. And obviously, Weaver is going to go up and cover up home plate now. He's going to show him exactly where the pitch was and why it wasn't called a strike, all of which would do nothing, but everybody here in the ballpark standing up, enjoying the show. Throws the ball into the upper deck of Dempsey. And now Weaver, strolling around home plate, is now beginning to pile dirt over the plate. And the 3 umpires, Greg Koss, Larry Barnett, the crew chief, and Bremigan is applauding Weaver. Bremigan, the plate umpire, he applauds Weaver and then raises his right hand over his head and makes tiny little circles just to say, "Are you all right?" And now Larry Barnett is saying, "Hey, Nick, look, just don't blow your cool. Just take it easy."
Well, after what seemed like an eternity, Earl finally up the game, and play got underway again. The next pitch to Tony Armas.
Well, we're ready to go with Tony Armas and the 2-2 pitch. High fly ball, deep left field. Lowenstein back at the fence. Looking up, it is a home run and a tie ball game. For Armas, home run number 21.
Tony continues to do it to the Orioles. The Orioles had a chance to tie it in the 9th. Couldn't do it. Had a chance to go ahead in the 9th inning and couldn't do it. Had a chance to go ahead in the 10th and couldn't do it. Then in the 11th inning, Big Cliff Johnson leads off with a home run, 5-4 Oakland. The Orioles 10th, Ochinko for Underwood. Dwyer walks. Bunbury sacrifices him down to second. Ochinko is pulled out for Dave Beard. Dower is out on a fly ball to left field, and J.R. Ripken came in. Final out of the game as he fouled out to the first baseman, and the Orioles lose it tonight. A close one by a score of 5-4. Let's pause now for station identification. This is the Orioles 37. That's 9 for 38 in the 10-game season series, but he's been awesome, to say the least, in the last 5 games. Armas has hit at least 1 home run in each game against Baltimore, starting on August the 21st at Oakland. And here are the rest of his totals in that period. He's hitting .368, 7 for 19 with 6 home runs and 1 double plus 11 RBIs. Of his 9 hits on the year against the Orioles, only 1 is a single. He has 6 home runs and 2 doubles. His league-leading totals: home runs 21, RBIs 62, and total bases 183. Dower having a problem. He had committed only 2 errors at second base in the last 133 games, dating back to July the 11th. That's after Tuesday's game, and since then he has miscued 1 in each of his last 3 games. Ken Singleton didn't snap an 0 for 16 string tonight when he got a base hit in the first inning, but Ken was over for the rest of the night. Well, we'll be back to take a look at the scoreboard for you after this message.